Okay, good morning and or good afternoon, depending on where you might be sitting. Thank you for joining us for this next level webinar titled Which Virtualization Platform is Right for Your Business? Today's webinar will be presented by 4 of New Horizons leading instructors, and I will introduce each one of them here in just a moment. For now, just know that my name is Brian Duncan, and if you do have any questions or if you have anything like that, please feel free to put those in either the questions or chat box. If it's something to do on the technical side, the guys will be able to see those as well, or if they miss one, I'll relay it to them. If it's something to do on the operational side, I can go ahead and get those handled for you throughout the webinar. So now, with that being said, just like all of our webinars, this one is provided by New Horizons Learning Solutions. A little bit about New Horizons you can see here. We're a proven worldwide training provider with flexible learning solutions covering a broad spectrum of topics taught by industry-leading instructors, just like the 4 gentlemen that you're going to hear from today. Here's just some other bullet points about us. You can take just a second to read through those. But that's not really what you're here for today. Guys talk a little bit about what they know best. So today we're going to have Ralph talking about Red Hat. We'll have Ryan talking about VMware, Ralph talking about Citrix, and Warren talking about Microsoft. Now, with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and the controls here. Ralph, go ahead and talk a little bit about Red Hat. All yours, Ralph.
All right, so can you hear me all right, Brian? Everything going well?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect.
All right, perfect. Welcome. My name is Ralph Nyberg. I am a certified instructor for New Horizons. The primary technologies that I work with would be the enterprise Linux technologies, including Red Hat, CentOS, and the Cisco technologies. My piece is not going to be super long here, but I do want to give you an overview of Red Hat virtualization, and then really talk about the Red Hat virtualization proposition. And how does Red Hat position itself in this world of virtualization. So, Brian, do you want to go ahead and advance the slide, or can I do that?
You should be able to just click on the screen and then.
I'm not. Oh, there we go. Perfect. All right. So, a couple things with the Red Hat solution. There is it's a broad solution, and so we have with Red Hat and virtualization, you have the ability to localize virtualization. They also have the Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization product. Here offers a variety of features that you would expect to see in an enterprise virtualization product. High availability of live migration, live snapshots, a comparable suite of function. And then beyond that, they also have the OpenStack product when you're going to a full infrastructure as a service. And one of the nice things about the Red Hat virtualization solution is that it is so broad. So you can start very small and with just a few virtualized servers, but you're going to see the hypervisor and KVM is going to be consistent from just a local legacy virtualization environment through Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization all the way through OpenStack. You're going to be using the same KVM hypervisor, and you're also going to be using the QEMU emulation. So as your needs grow, you can maintain consistency in terms of your, the format of your virtual machine. So obviously we have a limited amount of time here. So what I really wanted to focus on was the way that Red Hat positions, their virtualization solution. So first and foremost, when you're thinking about what virtualization solution might be right for you, one of the things that Red Hat really promotes is that it is a fully open source virtual solution. And so there are a number of different thoughts on open source software. Some people really like open source software. Some people are a little bit leery of open source software. So you have to decide for yourself or for your organization and your culture how you feel about open source solutions. Some environments are very open to the idea, some environments are not. It is cross-platform. You get excellent performance, obviously on Linux VMs, but then also Red Hat does a lot of work with Microsoft to make sure that you get the high performance with your Windows guests as well. We talked about the scalability of the solution, from a very small implementation all the way up to a full infrastructure as a service with Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization residing in the center there. So get the scalability along with the enterprise level support. Red Hat does an excellent job from a support standpoint. Now, Red Hat's proposition, they do talk about high performance. You know, I'm sure that all of the vendors will point to benchmarks in which they exceed the competitors, but they certainly compete well with all of the enterprise solutions. Also, we have the last piece there, and there's a reason I started with open source, and on the bottom I talked about affordability. Because these are probably two of the key points that Red Hat uses to differentiate their virtualization products, specifically the affordability piece in comparison to the VMware products. Red Hat is full subscription based in their model. Okay, and so what that really means for somebody purchasing the product, that there's a lot of upfront cost with VMware. In the cost analysis from Red Hat, asterisk, that you're looking at probably 4 to 1 in terms of the cost for the VMware solution versus the Red Hat solution in the first year, and that's because of the initial cost of the product, whereas Red Hat goes right into the subscription model. And then in the future years, the cost comparison is much closer. It's probably Red Hat positions itself to be, at about 80% of the cost of VMware going forward after that large initial cost. But certainly, Red Hat wants to compete on performance and scalability, but Red Hat also wants to compete, aggressively on pricing, and then offering a true open source solution. And so, when you're thinking about what solution is right for you, certainly there's a lot of discussion about the hypervisor at this point being a commodity, and so we're looking at the management tools and the functionality that we would get with the virtualization software. So that's something to consider. Does the feature set match the needs of your organization? Does the scalability match the needs of your organization? And also, there's a lot of activity around how applications are being deployed. You're seeing a lot of work from the Linux side and the Windows side with Docker and containers, and so making sure that 3 to 5 years from now you're going to be happy with your solution is also an important piece. And it's nice with the Red Hat solution that you have the same hypervisor and you have the same emulation through their entire suite. So that's really what I wanted to talk about. We're going to table questions. Is that right, Brian?
Yeah, we'll hold off questions till the end and kind of absorb them all at one time. So.
Okay, excellent. Then I'm ready to hand off to Ryan.
Okay, Ryan, I will give you control here. And Ryan, you should be all set.
All right. Hey guys, I'm one of New Horizons' VMware instructors. Get to be the guy that a lot of people like to pick on because, especially in these kinds of things, comparing hypervisors, I feel like VMware's got a lot of market share. We've got lots of different stuff. But the good news is I also teach a few Hyper-V classes as well, so stay kind of abreast of all of the virtualization technology. But VMware is what I'm going to focus on today. We'll talk about some of the new stuff, vSphere 6, the different tools. VMware's got lots of different tools that we're going to go through and then we'll actually talk about here. So in terms of what we've got, again, focusing on vSphere 6, we'll just talk numbers, go down to the numbers, what VMware can do for you in terms of host cluster storage specs. In vSphere 6, 64 hosts per cluster. You can do 8,000 VMs per cluster. They've bumped these numbers up, so it scales really well in a lot of environments. They've doubled the numbers to 4,000. It's up from 32 and 4,000 and 5.5. These are 480 max CPUs per host, so you can do up from 320 in 5.5. 128 vCPUs per VM. Now these are VM limitations, so 128 vCPUs per VM. They do have a really cool feature called fault tolerance. We'll talk a bit more about it on the next slide. That's unique to VMware. What that does is it allows you to keep a VM up and running 24/7, no downtime. You don't, one of the cool things about it. So now they've upped that as well in vSphere 6. So now you can have up to 4 CPUs for fault-tolerant VMs. 12 terabytes of maximum memory per host. So your host limits have gone up. 4 terabytes of maximum memory per virtual machine, and then 64 terabytes of maximum data store size. So you can have a 62, looks like a typo there, terabytes. So 62 terabyte maximum virtual disk size. So in vSphere 6, they've improved vMotion recently. You can do a cross vCenter migration, which is pretty sweet. So you could theoretically move VMs, from New York, California through long distance vMotions. You can change a lot of different things like data stores. You can do do your traditional vMotion, but also do storage vMotion, change your network, all that kind of stuff at the same time. And it does support Microsoft clustering as well. So in terms of the fault tolerance feature, I love going back to this. It's a really cool feature. All right, you keeps the VM up and running 24/7, so you don't have any downtime. They have completely gutted it actually in vSphere 6. So one of the newest things that has been out. It's been out about a year now, but the 4 CPU fault tolerance. All right, there's no downtime. You heard it correctly. What happens is VMware's actually changed this, so there's no more lockstep. It's called fast checkpointing now. It's basically like a constant vMotion that never ends. So yes, it takes up bandwidth, but I always say, it's not magical pixie dust. It has to come from somewhere. So it's a very heavily modified version of vMotion. So the cool thing too is the old versions of fault tolerance didn't support any format. You had to use a thick eager provision disk, but now you can actually use a thick eager. You can use a thick lazy disk, or you can use a thin provisioning even. And it also keeps separate copies of the actual disk file. So in the old version, you had to have shared disk, whereas in this, you don't have to have that. You get the broader range of compatibility. So basically, if you can vMotion a VM, you can use fault tolerance. Some other cool features, new stuff, vVols, so there's no more LUN-based storage. All right, it's a SAN and NAS management. It's integrated. It's going to go down to your storage vendor. So ultimately, the goal from a VMware standpoint is to slowly start moving away from the whole, being stuck on, the LUN kind of techniques and storage arrays. So, again, it's going to come down to your vendor, who you're working with, but vVols is going to be kind of the a futuristic way of essentially basically connecting into storage, where people are going to be using that. So, in server solutions, some other neat things here. They have if you're dealing with virtual desktops, so Horizon, they have a new thing called Instant Clone. It's called VM Fork. So you're going to probably hear that the lingo is basically the same thing. So Instant Clone or VM Fork, the technical project term for it was VM Fork, but the VMs don't use any additional memory or disk until they're actually modified a block of memory. So you're going to see one of the really cool things with instant clones is like virtual desktops. You get 100 users who connect in at once. Those things can be instantaneously ready to go. You have a really cool feature, CPU and memory hot add. So if a VM is powered on, you can hot add CPU to it. You can hot add memory to it. There's network IO control now for VM reservations. You can do storage IOPS reservations, so you can reserve things. vSAN, kind of a neat feature, allows you to use local storage a bit better. There's a feature called Platform Service Control, so they've kind of unified all the services. One of the big complaints about the older versions is that you had services everywhere. Well, now the Platform Service Control kind of unifies that stuff. They've also added in multiple TCP/IP stacks. So they used to have one default stack for everything. It was kind of inefficient, so they've actually broken this stuff up. There's data protection. This is actually a cool feature. So VMware gets a lot of flack for, it costs money. But the thing is their licensing comes with a lot of stuff. So you actually get data protection. So if you have standard licensing, you can actually have up to 8 terabytes of dedupe backup storage for an appliance, and you can back up to 800 VMs per appliance. So these are some really neat features that you would actually get that I actually like. So you can go through, a lot of times if you're using a lot of other solutions and you're looking into backup stuff, you're going to be looking into third-party tools. That's another tool that kind of is a lot of people don't realize. But now in terms of desktop and application solutions, all right, these are kind of just some bullets. They've got Horizon with View, so that's kind of the VDI deployment if you're going to be using virtual desktops. XenApp's a neat kind of tool that you can use to package up applications. Mirage, the desktop management. There's a thing called Workspace Portal. So So you can go out, bring your own device. You're going to see that a lot in virtual desktop things. The Horizon Air desktops, you can use Horizon Air for like disaster recovery, and then Horizon Flex to deliver out the virtual desktops. Bring your own device. You're going to see that there's more and more people for like virtual desktops where that's becoming a thing. And then we have workstation and Fusion products for like a desktop thing. Now, cloud solutions, we've got vCloud Air from a VMware perspective. It goes out. You have a hybrid cloud development, so you can go out. You can develop on internal stuff. If you wanted to move out to a public cloud, you can actually go through and have a hybrid cloud and extend your environment. You see a lot of people using it for disaster recovery, so being able to back up VMs into the cloud, you can extend stuff. So again, last time I did this, I ran out of time, so I'm trying to speed along here and make sure that we're getting through everything. But we'll save the questions for the end, and we'll continue on and give it off to Khalaf.
Okay. Khalaf, you should have access to the keyboard now.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Khalaf Haddad, and I am the Citrix instructor here at New Horizons. Thoroughly enjoy working with the Citrix technologies over the last few years and getting to know what they have on offer. Citrix does a very nice job of putting together a full range of a solution, particularly in the virtualization space. So we'll just jump right in on that. And there we go. And we'll start with the core hypervisor XenServer. Now, XenServer is based on the open source project of the same name. It is a Type 1 hypervisor, meaning that it installs on your bare metal, and it's pretty fast. It's got good memory management. And best part about XenServer in terms of cost is that it is free. Now, kind of hard to beat free, as Ralph already pointed out. That's one of the nice things about open source. But Citrix does have a licensed version of XenServer that includes some of the higher-end things, such as the ability to move machines, move virtual machines between hypervisors. That's your XenMotion. And so some of the high availability features do require the purchase of a license. However, there is a way to get that license for free as well. It almost sounds like Citrix is in the business of giving away software, and I can tell you they're not. Their stockholders wouldn't allow that. However, starting with a pretty cool base, your XenServer hypervisor does everything that a hypervisor needs to do in terms of the whole memory management, the storage management, networking, and the like. One of the things that XenServer excels in is being a leader in the virtualized graphics processor space. So if you have a bunch of NVIDIA cards, for example, and you want to provide virtualized GPUs for high-end applications with a lot of graphics, XenServer is an excellent candidate for that particular workload. Now, I did mention that you could get the XenServer licenses for free. That's if you purchase I think it's the Platinum Edition of their flagship XenDesktop product. XenDesktop is the primary product that Citrix offers. It's the product that Citrix offers that gives you your virtual desktop infrastructure. The XenDesktop has been a leader in this space for many, many years and offers a couple of different ways in which the machines can be created and managed. And whether you use the disk cloning method or disk streaming, it provides for a very easy and simple way to do single image management for a bunch of computers. So if I were to create, say, 100 virtual machines built off of the same master image, I can go back and do that single image management very, very easily, and it's nice. So of course, with virtual desktops, you need a hypervisor to run them on, and that's why Citrix would take the XenServer license and give it to you when you purchase the Platinum Edition of the XenDesktop product. Now, in addition to licensing, or in addition to the virtual desktop infrastructure solution, the third Xen product, if you will, in Citrix's portfolio is the beloved XenApp product. Now, today, or a few years ago, Citrix announced that the XenApp and the XenDesktop code bases were going to merge. But because of the popularity and the brand equity they had in XenApp, they've brought back and built up that XenApp name with the idea to focus on application virtualization. Or if you think about hosted applications, in other words, that the application runs on a server OS in your data center, and the user simply sees that application on their device as if it's running locally, even though we know it's not. Now, what's nice about that is by centralizing all of the applications in the data center, we get the benefits of single image management, single instance management of the applications, protection of the data, in that the data doesn't really have to travel outside the data center. The only thing leaving the data center is the video output of the application, and the user is returning of course, the keyboard mouse input coming back. With this, putting together XenApp and XenDesktop, we can get some pretty incredible session density to make much better use of the underlying virtual machines and the hypervisor and the hardware by stacking up a number of sessions and get some really good session density. There is also support if you are looking for streamed applications. Citrix used to have their own streaming solution, but in the current release of the product, they now defer to Microsoft's AppV and will offer that and allow you to integrate and deliver AppV applications from within the XenApp. So between the three, XenApp, XenDesktop, and XenServer, they all tell a unified story of giving you the best of breed products for application virtualization, desktop virtualization, and hypervisor management. Well, it would be remiss to not mention that Citrix also has been doing some work in the cloud. I think that cloud platform link, unfortunately, needed to have been updated, and I guess I got the wrong one out to you, so I apologize. But one of the fun things with Citrix is a name change. I think if I can paste the link, oh no, that didn't go to everyone. That doesn't go to everyone yet. Does it go to everyone here? Nope.
The first one went to everyone.
Oh, it did? Okay, good.
Nope, my fault. It only went to organizing the panelists. Well, here, let me do this for you.
Okay, I think, yeah, you can send that out for me then.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
That would be an update to the first link there about the Cloud Portal Services Manager. And what's cool is that Citrix is also doing a lot of work in the cloud. Recently, they announced a partnership with Microsoft in providing the XenApp, XenDesktop services in Azure. That Azure would be their preferred cloud for delivering there. So if you're doing any work with cloud services in Azure or even Citrix's own Portal Services Manager, it's nice to see these workloads that are available for use in the cloud. So some really neat things going on there. But wait, there's more. All of this hypervisor stuff and the connectivity and the virtualized applications and the desktops, we still have to manage getting to them in the first place. And Citrix has thought through that with the NetScaler acquisition from 10 years ago. They've really built up the NetScaler product, there we go, as to enhance access and security to your applications. So the NetScaler product itself was designed as a layer 4 through 7 appliance to be an application delivery controller. So for things like load balancing or content switching, SSL offload, tasks that we move from the application servers out front so the application servers can have more processor time to do application stuff. So that's the thing like caching, compression, responder rules, rewrite rules. All that is handled up front on this NetScaler appliance. And that SSL offload is huge if you want to bring in secure connections. The SSL offload also provides the foundation for the gateway component, the NetScaler gateway, where we would see if a remote user wants to access a desktop session or a hosted application coming through the gateway can act as a proxy and bring that resource out to the user without exposing the internal infrastructure. So through offering things such as the ICA proxy function, as we call it, or even going all the way in, that if a certain user wants to come in via VPN, the NetScaler gateway can offer an SSL VPN endpoint, if you will. With all of that said, because the NetScaler can look at layers 4 through 7 traffic and analyze what's going on, the NetScaler is positioned perfectly to do things such as endpoint analysis. That is, the NetScaler can choose, or can be configured rather, to allow connections in only from corporate resources. So we could scan the registry and look for certain, whether you're a domain member, we could look for files in the file system. And by the way, this isn't limited just to people coming in from Windows laptops. This would also work with Mac OS machines. So if you have people that insist on using their MacBooks, the endpoint analysis could still be done. So with that, we can do pre-authentication scans, authorization to specify what a user is allowed based on the condition of their endpoint. Session policies to determine the quality of the session and the features available therein. And most of all, the smart access feature, which based on the results of that endpoint analysis, the NetScaler can actually communicate back to the XenApp XenDesktop environment characteristics of the user connection being made and allow for that information to be used as policy filters within the virtualization environment. So from top to bottom, Citrix does do a very nice job of considering not only the virtualization question, but also with regard to hosted applications, virtual desktops, but also the connectivity required to facilitate access to all of that. I'll say that in the last few years, it's been quite interesting to see how all of this is really sharpened into focus, I say, in the last 2 to 3 years, and looking at what many consider to be a best-of-breed solution.
Okay.
And with that, we'll hand it off to Warren.
All right. I think my mic is now functioning. Maybe somebody can confirm that for me real quick.
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Sounds good. All right, and then let's see if I can move forward. All right. Okay, awesome. Well, my name is Warren, and I'm a Microsoft instructor. Do lots and lots and lots of Microsoft classes, and of course work with all the Microsoft virtualization components. And I've listed some of the main components that you see up here on the screen right now. Hyper-V is Microsoft's hypervisor. That is the component that allows us to host virtual machines on top of a Windows server. Microsoft has, for the most part, been playing catch-up with VMware for many years now. VMware, I think, even though we all have our own point of view, VMware, I think, for the most part, is regarded as the industry leader in virtualization. And Microsoft, of course, wants that title themselves. And so they have been playing catch-up in trying to catch up in terms of capability with VMware. And their hope is, once they catch up in capability, that they'll also catch up in market share. They've been doing a pretty good job of it the last few years. If you're not already aware, Server 2012 was definitely a generational leap forward from its predecessor, Server 2008, which was the first Windows operating system to include Hyper-V. And we're looking for another generational leap forward coming very soon with Server 2016, probably coming out in the next few months. So Hyper-V provides all of the major capabilities that you think of in any virtualization solution. Has the ability to host virtual machines, of course, allows us to migrate those virtual machines while they're running from one host computer to another. We have clustering capability and fault tolerance. So, if a server fails, the virtual machine can be spun up on another system. We have Hyper-V Replica, which allows us to replicate virtual machines to a remote office, typically used for disaster recovery. So if my Denver office, I have to be in Denver, so I'll use Denver as an example. But if my Denver office has a fire or a flood, something like that, if we've replicated those virtual machines to a remote office, we can go to that remote office, boot them on up, and we've got basically our network back, assuming all of our critical systems have been virtualized. Some of the other virtualization components that might be less famous, one is AppV. AppV is an application virtualization solution that Microsoft offers. This does not come with Server 2012. This would require a little extra expense. But the idea of AppV is when you virtualize an application, it basically separates the application from the operating system, isolates it so that you can run it on a computer without actually installing it on that computer first. So it allows us to run applications without installing them, which can make deployment of applications to client systems, for example, much easier. Microsoft also has a product called UEV, which is User Environment Virtualization. That allows us to basically roam settings. So you might be familiar with the familiar concept of a roaming profile. As I roam from one computer to another on the network, my settings follow. But this would actually allow you to roam application settings when I roam between one version of an app and another. For example, I might run the app as a virtual app, and then I also might run it as a local app on my computer. I might run it off of a Citrix server. We heard about XenApp a short time ago. So I might run the app off Citrix XenApp server as well. And in all three cases, the application settings follow, even though I'm running totally different instances of that application. The last one I listed up there is VDI, Virtual Desktop Infrastructure. I'm guessing many of you are familiar with the concept. The idea here is that you host the virtual machine on a server that would run in the data center, and the user can connect to that virtual machine from their device. So maybe I have a user who doesn't have a full desktop computer. Maybe they just have a tablet, or they have what we often call a thin client, which is a computer that is kind of stripped down in terms of its hardware capability. And then the user can basically connect to a virtual machine that's being hosted in the data center. And then that virtual machine could be running Windows 10. It could have all the apps that they need. And the user would basically live inside that virtual machine all day. So that virtual machine kind of replaces their normal desktop environment. Okay. So those are all technologies that Microsoft offers. And some of them come with Server 2012, some don't. It just depends on the component. And here are some of the specs in terms of scalability. I think these numbers are pretty similar to VMware. VMware might have Microsoft beat in a couple cases. But for most organizations, when you're talking about being able to run 1,000 virtual machines on a physical host, that will satisfy most people, right? Those are pretty big numbers. You have 64 hosts in a cluster, up to 8,000 virtual machines in that cluster, up to 1 terabyte of RAM for each virtual machine. So again, VMware might be a little ahead on some of those numbers, but a lot of them, it's a tie. Okay, so one of the real big advantages I think that Microsoft offers in comparison to their competition is that Microsoft is such a, wow, I mean, they're a huge company, right? They're absolutely massive, and they provide lots of different components and features. And so whenever you kind of buy into that ecosystem, it gives you the ability to integrate with lots of other products that might also be useful. I've listed some of them here, just some of them. The first one I listed is System Center Virtual Machine. This particular product gives you the ability to do what I would call enterprise-level management. Okay, so when you have a Hyper-V host, and you've got virtual machines on that host, I can manage that pretty easily by going into the Hyper-V console. But what if I have 300 host computers, or 600 host computers? And what if those 600 host computers are hosting 3,000 virtual machines? When you get to those levels, to those numbers, it becomes very frustrating to manage those large numbers from a little Hyper-V console that comes built into Server 2012. So in an environment like that, you might decide to purchase System Center. And one of the components, so System Center is actually a suite of many different products. One of those products is System Center Virtual Machine Manager. And it allows you to manage large groups of Hyper-V hosts and large groups of virtual machines all from one console. It gives you the ability to manage things in a more global way, where I can manage large groups of systems from one place. It also has lots of neat load balancing mechanisms. So, one host computer is running really hard while another one isn't running so hard. Virtual Machine Manager can rebalance the load of virtual machines between those hosts to balance the workload better. So that's Microsoft's large-scale solution. And let me jump down to the bottom, and then I'll move back up. The bottom one that I mentioned is Azure. Azure is Microsoft's public cloud. Okay, so this is, the idea here would be that instead of running your own data center and maintaining your own host computers and, servers and racks and switches and power supplies and, doing all that kind of stuff yourself, Microsoft can host the virtual machines for you. And one of the things about Azure is that it's really, really big. It's really big. I heard a statistic a couple of years back. It's probably changed since then. But the Azure data center, as of a couple of years ago, has more computing power within it than the entire world had in the year 2000. Okay, so if you were to add up all the computing power of every single computer in the entire world in the year 2000, the Azure data center is bigger than that. And that was a couple of years ago. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because what Microsoft is starting to do here is I think they're really starting to transition. For years, Microsoft has been a software company, and they sell me products that I use. But what's starting to happen now, when you talk about Hyper-V, you talk about Virtual Machine Manager, they actually need those products more for themselves than they need it for us. Okay? So what's starting to happen is they're starting to transition here where a lot of the development that they're doing on these products is to try to run that Azure data center, which is this big, massive data center. As far as I'm aware, last I saw, I think they're number 2 in the world in terms of the second biggest cloud in the world, I think behind Amazon. And so they're running this massive, huge data center, and they need tools to run it. And so what's starting to happen now is they're developing those tools for themselves. And then while they're at it, they'll sell those tools to us. All right? So we can run those same tools within our own data centers that Microsoft is using in their data center. I mean, it makes sense to me that, if it works for Microsoft, it should probably work for me too. They're running something a lot bigger than I'll ever. So that's Azure. A couple other tools that you might integrate with is System Center Operations Manager. That can provide features like monitoring, reporting, alerting. You don't get a lot of that with Virtual Machine Manager or with Hyper-V. A lot of that's not built in. But System Center Operations Manager has that capacity, and it absolutely integrates with Virtual Machine Manager. Another component that you might decide to integrate with would be System Center Orchestrator. That's a component that can do automation and workflows. One of the things that Microsoft pitches a lot is they talk about PowerShell, right? And every time you want to automate something, they say use PowerShell, right? Write a PowerShell script. And I'm a fan of PowerShell. I like PowerShell. As far as scripting languages go, it's a pretty easy language to learn, actually. But it's still a scripting language. And for a lot of us IT people, we're not all programmers. We don't all have programming brains. It's almost like it's a totally different skill set. An orchestrator can be a really nice option for people because it can provide that automation without actually having to write any code, okay, without actually writing any code at all. It integrates with, Virtual Machine Manager, it integrates with Hyper-V, it integrates with Operations Manager, it integrates with Azure, and on and on. And so we can use that tool to create automated workflows. So, for example, you might imagine a situation where somebody wants to, somebody in your organization wants to create a virtual machine, and maybe they go out and fill out a little web form, and they submit the web form, and then maybe the orchestrator runbook runs and creates the virtual machine and emails me and emails them that the virtual machine is now ready to go. So it provides some of those automated processes that can be very useful, especially in large-scale environments. Okay, so and those are just some of the products that you can integrate with. Let me advance the slide there one more time. Okay, so I don't know that I'm going to win this argument against Citrix or against Red Hat. But when it comes to VMware, Microsoft has a pretty compelling case to be made when it comes to price. All right, so maybe they haven't caught up entirely. They've been working really hard and catching up to VMware, and maybe they're not quite there, but they're pretty close. For most customers, the Microsoft solutions provide everything they need. And so, you have lots of features, lots of scalability. And so when I compare Microsoft to VMware, maybe it's not quite there, but it's close enough for me. And then where Microsoft really has a big advantage is on price. Microsoft is a big, massive company, and they're making tons of money on their cloud services. They're making money on selling Office. They're making money on Xboxes. They've got plenty of revenue sources. And so one of the things that they do is they're very strategic in how they price all their virtualization platforms. Now, it's not going to be free. All right, we're not going to get to that level. They do actually have a free version of Hyper-V, but it has some limitations. But in terms of price, they can be really competitive. And so for organizations where Microsoft provides maybe 90–95% of everything I need, and I'm looking at the budget, that may be the thing that sways the balance in Microsoft's favor. And that's one of the reasons that Microsoft has been pretty successful in eating up some of the market share over the last few years. I don't know that they're leading the market yet. I think they're still behind VMware. But I remember seeing some stats a couple years ago that VMware had maybe 50% of the market, Microsoft was around 30% of the market, and there was another 20% of Citrix, Red Hat, and other vendors as well. But Microsoft was gaining, and so I don't know if they've quite caught up to VMware yet, but they're getting close. And I think one of the big reasons why, besides providing quality products, is that they've been very aggressive in their pricing. And we all have budgets to deal with, and so that's been a real strong value for them. All right, well, thank you for your time, and I'm going to advance the slide, and I guess I'm going to turn it back over to Brian.
Thank you so much, Warren, and thank you, everyone. Yeah, so if anybody does have any questions, please feel free at this time to put them into the questions or the chat box, and the guys here have just a couple more minutes to answer any questions that you might have. So anything that might be on your mind or you're wondering, put those in there. While we wait to see if any questions come through, I want to first thank all four of you for taking time out of your day. I know it is a busy schedule and you're in the middle of teaching a class to present this for us. So we really do appreciate it. You guys did a wonderful job, and we want to thank you again. And then I'd also like to thank everybody who attended for taking time in your day to listen to the four gentlemen talk about each of their products and help you decide which one might be a best fit for your organization. So guys, I don't see any additional questions coming in, so we will go ahead and call that an end to the webinar. Thank you everyone once again for attending, and thank you gentlemen for once again taking time out of your day to present for us. Oh, and as I
You're welcome, Brian. Have a great day.
You too. And absolutely, the presentation is available. We will be sending an email out tomorrow afternoon, which will have access to recording of the webinar, as well as we'll follow that up with an email with the actual slide decks as well. So you'll receive those tomorrow. Call it mid-afternoon.